Ha ha! What it do, busters? The bug catcher is here today, smoking trees, catching butter freeze, baby. So, you all read the title, you all subscribed right after. When will Pokemon fall the fuck off? And, you know, Pokemon sells drastically well. Every mainline game sold like 10 million copies at least. And the dip started around Gen 3. And, it kind of, in terms of sales, right, Busters? Because some would say Pokemon fell off already. Some would say that. But I guess I'm just talking about sales, right? Because a lot of the game, you know, X and Y had its problems. Let's Go was a cash grab. Uh, Sword and Shield people didn't like, even though I did. Scarlet and Violet had its issues. People are shitting on Legend ZA graphically, which I did a little bit. And the DLC is bogus. I will be honest. But I mean in terms of sales, right? Because since Black and White, which were the lowest selling games, mainline games of all time, which should tell you something, other than Black and White, or since Black and White, the sales have only gone back up. They've only gone back up. And I'm trying to figure out when they're gonna fall the fuck back off, Busters. Sword and Shield were the second best selling Pokemon games of all time until Scarlet and Violet. Both of those games surpassed Gold and Silver. And you can say what you want. Legends Arceus sold 15 million copies at the time of this recording. If they had two versions of that, that could have sold 25 million. Who knows? At the time of this recording, the only sales for ZA is the first week's sales, which was 5.8 million. So Pokemon, in terms of sales, aren't falling off. 30th anniversary is coming up. I think that's gonna actually attract more people than ever. But after Gen 10, I truly believe the fall off is coming. And I don't know if the fake leaks, I think they're fake, with the 4-game or 4-gen region game, or whatever the fuck, right? The the first 4 regions supposed to be in an MMO type game, Busters. Sooner than later. That might save it, depending on when it comes out. But I think the Pokemon fatigue is gonna hit during this 30th anniversary. And I think, it's gonna peak out. Like, this is the end of the peak, but it's gonna be the max the peak hits. I think Gen 10 has the potential, which will be, Gen 10 is gonna be based in Italy. I'm telling you guys, forget them leaks. I think Gen 10 has the potential to beat Red and Blue in terms of sales. And then I think the decline is going to happen. People are going to stop buying these games. Because there's only so many lifelong fans that are going to stay when you put out shit after shit and trash after trash. They're always going to sell 10 million copies, 15 million copies, based off the fact that this is a kids targeted demographic. I bet kids played Legends Arceus and maybe even ZA the least because Nintendo Japan came out and said those games were targeted for the complaining American audience, which is the adults in America, who want more from Pokemon in terms of story and this and that. I think the stories be fine. I'm cool with a Sword and Shield type story. What I'm not fine with is them putting out bullshit DLC and expecting people to respect their company. Them putting out games like the Switch 2 is just as strong as the PS4 Pro. But the game, I have to admit, looks like it could be late maximized PS2, early PS3 era of gaming. And that really isn't acceptable. This game doesn't look better than Mario Odyssey on Switch 1. You know, it doesn't look better than Breath of the Wild, Switch 1 edition. It doesn't. And this is a Switch 2 title. The point is, when are people finally gonna get fed up? And I think it's gonna be after Gen 10 simmers down. I don't think people are gonna stay. Especially when they're moving it seems like they're gonna move the main competitive battling shit tournaments to Pokemon Champions whenever that comes out. I just think it's time for Pokemon to have their fall off. And I just think it's coming. Who really thinks Gen 10 is going to be something spectacular like they're going to hype it up to be? If they hype it up at all. I just don't see it coming. I just don't see Pokemon, each game, staying afloat. Wrestling is in a big decline. The product isn't as good as it was in the 90s or early 2000s, similar as Pokemon. The only difference is the viewership shows. WWE SmackDown doesn't even get 1 million viewers nowadays. It's just a struggle for them to hit that. When, 99, they were hitting 5 million views every Thursday night, SmackDown. Now Pokemon's putting out low quality shit on a fucking platter. But when are they gonna fucking suffer from it? Where's the suffering? When are people actually gonna stop buying these games? All people do is complain about them. So there has to be a point where people shut the fuck up and put their money back in their pockets. I just don't understand. I'm gonna buy them, right? I'll be real. So, let me explain why I'll buy the games, right? And maybe this can go into maybe I'm not the only one who thinks like this. Because nostalgia is a motherfucker. And I'm even nostalgic on the idea of Pokemon being a home console. I still think 15-year-old bug catcher, was reminiscing, dreaming, hoping, praying on his knees for Pokemon to look how it does now. But now that we got it, it's like trash. But, it's like now that we got it, though, it's like at least we got it. This is what I always wanted from them, was this. It's just, comparatively speaking, across the globe, they're not as good as they need to be. And I think the fatigue is really going to settle in. People are going to stop. People are going to want to stop talking about, Pokemon could be this, but they're not. Pokemon could be this, but they ain't. I'm tired of talking about it. And I think I think they're gonna pull something out of their assholes for Gen 10. I think they're gonna pull something right out of their hat, and it's not gonna be a big fuzzy white rabbit, out of the top hat. They're gonna do something crazy, I think, and get people talking, get people's blood pumping, busters, and then the game will drop, and everybody is gonna see a trailer or something before the game drops, and it's gonna be the same old fucking slop that we're used to. And even if it's not the same old sloppity slop, Is it gonna be taken serious? I don't know. I don't know when Pokemon's gonna fall off, because when you get online, all you I was the only one talking good about Legend ZA, like, in the hardest way. I had its back to the fullest percentage. Not like who I love, by the way, M and J TV. I'm never, he'll just say something. I'll never say nothing bad about a Pokemon game, even though I can admit, they aren't as looking as good as the others. I didn't even say that. I was calling people out for even saying that. But, here we are. And the fall off is coming, Busters. So, if you want to know how I knew Gen 10 was going to be in Italy when no one else did, if you want to know how I'm the man with the plan and no one can stand a real one like me, go ahead and subscribe, because the bug catcher's coming back for more, baby. Fuck with a real one.